as more vaccine requirements go into place in workplaces, including President Joe Biden's federal mandate through the U.S. Department of Labor that will require all businesses with 100 or plus employees to have workers vaccinated or do weekly testing for COVID-19. That puts a lot more strain on testing laboratories. And to talk more about that increased demand and how that's being navigated at one local laboratory, we're pleased to be joined by Faisal Ahmad. He is the co-founder and the vice president of Orchard Laboratories with us on the MegaCast. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Appreciate having you on. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, Orchard Laboratories has been heavily involved in testing for COVID-19 and running through these tests at times of high demand. What struggles does your company go through in order to maintain that demand while also maintaining certain priorities? Because in some cases it's much more urgent for certain populations to have their test results back and know if they're COVID-19 positive than others that may just generally be curious.
So, the struggle we've had over through the pandemic has really been on a supply chain processes, right? It's hard to get supplies. It was a really big challenge last year. We put a lot of processes in place, and we feel pretty confident that that's no longer a problem for us. As far as prioritizing, really, we try not to do that too much, because for everyone, that result's very important. And there's a lot of anxiety usually tied around getting a COVID test done. If you're getting it done, there's a reason. Either you don't feel well or you need it for work or school or something like that. So we pretty much try to run everything as fast as we can. We're under 24 hours now on a turnaround time. Sometimes we even do same day, depending on the day. So, really for us, it's about easing some anxiety for everyone out there.
You mentioned the supply chain issues early on were a major issue, and they were for a lot of testing organizations as well as for companies and for other institutions that needed PPE earlier on in the pandemic. We still have some supply chain issues now with certain products that are being either held or being backlogged in their priority for places that they previously weren't shipped to earlier on in the pandemic when they were ordered. Are supply chain issues a worry right now for your laboratory and for other laboratories in your industry as they're preparing for what may be an increased number of tests because of federal mandates that require either full vaccination of employees at companies with over 100 people or weekly testing to be conducted?
Yeah, absolutely. That worry is there. I think the difference is that we're more prepared and we understand better what to expect. I think last year, everyone was kind of taken by surprise or taken off guard as to just how bad that supply chain would get. This year, expecting something like that, I think more and more companies, ourselves included, have built up a supply of supplies in-house. We have a stockpile of things so that we know we have at least 30 to 60 days worth of supply in-house. We're not relying on overnight shipping and things like that, which previous to the pandemic, that was how most businesses ran. Everything was very efficient on just getting supplies in that you needed when you needed it and not holding a bunch of inventory or stock in-house. That's changed now, obviously. So we feel very confident in our ability to service the need here.
We're joined by Faisal Ahmad. He is the co-founder and the vice president of Orchard Laboratories with us today on the MegaCast. And so speaking on being better prepared for those shortages in supply chain, but you also want to be better prepared for times where there may be increased demand. How do you and your company at Orchard Laboratories, how do you anticipate the federal mandates that are going into place for companies with over 100 people through the Department of Labor, as well as government entities at the federal level as well? How do you anticipate that may change the level of testing output that your laboratory may have to do, and then navigate that with your operational changes to maintain your supply so you don't end up with shortages and delays?
So that's a great question. We anticipate a significant surge in testing coming through these mandates. But with that, towards the beginning of the year and through April, we saw a pretty heavy decrease in COVID testing as well. As the vaccines were rolling out, more and more people were not getting tested as much. So we're prepared. Our company's already prepared to do, close to 10,000 or just over 10,000 samples a day, which we're not doing that many, at this time. So we've put into place, and we run 3 shifts. We run 24/7, and again, we have a lot of supply ready for the surge. I think that had we already been running at the top of the need like we were last year, November timeframe, this would have been a big stress. But I believe, given the overall decrease in testing, that it won't be difficult to absorb this new influx.
We're joined by Faisal Ahmad. He is joining us from Orchard Laboratories on the MegaCast. He is the co-founder and the vice president of Orchard Laboratories. And Orchard Laboratories provides testing for more than 70 nursing homes in Michigan currently, including in the Upper Peninsula, along with dozens of urgent care corporations, film sets, and other healthcare providers. And Faisal, earlier on in the pandemic, testing took so much time for COVID-19, and part of that was because it was a novel coronavirus. The tests were still very much in developmental phases as they were being researched and they were being perfected or improved. They were also being put out there in the processes as well and needed to have testing output. What has changed overall that has made testing so much more widely available now than back then, but also being able to be conducted so much more rapidly and still just as accurately as it previously was?
Well, like I said, everything evolves, right? So in the beginning of the pandemic, there were only a handful of labs or facilities you could go to. We were the first private lab to do high throughput testing in Michigan, and now there are many dozens, if not more, labs doing that. So the access to testing has increased a lot, which then decreases the load on any one facility or one organization to try to carry that water. I think also technology has increased. As our scientists work with these assays and work with this testing, we're now doing even higher throughput tests, and we're able to do more samples at one time and then run multiple machines and things like that. I think at the very beginning, there were shortages of instruments, there were shortages of hardware, trained personnel, which I think a key thing. We're blessed to have a very, talented team here, and we've grown that team over the last year, and we continue to grow it. And I think we're now at a position where personnel is in place, equipment and technology is in place, and that the expertise is in place now to handle these sorts of projects.
We're joined by Faisal Ahmad. He is the co-founder and vice president of Orchard Laboratories, joining us on the MegaCast. And just for people that may be curious, when they go and they take a COVID-19 test, either at their place of work or independently at a healthcare provider, wherever it may be, and when it gets sent to Orchard Laboratories, what kind of process does it go through from being inputted to being output to ensure, that it is done accurately, but also that this test is done swiftly and the results come back as soon as possible so that people can make informed decisions about what they need to do to keep themselves and others safe from COVID-19?
So we have a lot of automation and safety checks in place. So, for example, when a patient comes in or a sample comes in from a facility, it's been barcoded already at the point of getting the sample. When it gets in here, our techs here will then scan that into our system. It's identified to a patient. It's verified through multiple different identity checks on that sample. And then from that point forward, that barcode is what travels along with it all throughout the process, from extracting the sample, amplifying the sample, and then finally running it on the PCR system. All of that is tied back into our LIS system, which then produces a report. Our scientists then check the report, check the data for accuracy. Once they've signed off on it, it's released immediately to the provider. So they'll get a web portal access. Some patients and facilities want text results, some are getting emailed. So we have the ability to offer many different types of reporting tools for them.
We're joined by Faisal Ahmad. He is the co-founder and vice president of Orchard Laboratories with us today on the MegaCast, one of the leading diagnostic laboratories. Orchard Laboratories met the pandemic head on by more than doubling its number of employed staff during March of 2020. And currently we have so many staffing issues in so many different industries here in the state of Michigan and across the U.S. As demand increases, does your need for staffing continue to increase as well? Obviously, it did earlier on in the pandemic, and you were able to hire a number of new staff to help meet that demand back then. Is there still that need now, or are there staffing issues now that you're facing that may pose a challenge going forward?
Absolutely. Staffing is always a challenge, and we're constantly growing. So finding new and qualified staff is something that is a full-time job that our HR staff is constantly doing. Our belief is, you can never have enough good people, so we're always on the look for good people to join our team.
We're joined by Faisal Ahmad. He is joining us from Orchard Laboratories, where he is their co-founder and vice president. So what kind of positions are you looking for? There are openings right now. What kind of positions are you looking for? What are some of the qualifications? And in case people are watching this show and want to be working there on the front lines of this pandemic, helping people understand if they may or may not have COVID-19, and helping all these different industries and medical providers and others properly test for COVID-19.
Sure, we have a full run of positions available. Everything from courier van drivers, because we have our own courier service in the house, and these samples all get picked up, to data entry type positions, which don't require a lot of, a high school degree or something like that, just proficiency in computers, all the way up to high level science background positions where, we need to see either chemistry, biology, microbiology type of background, bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, PhDs. So a full range of positions are here available, and they're all posted online and on our website as well.
We're joined by Faisal Ahmad. He is the co-founder and the vice president of Orchard Laboratories with us today on the MegaCast. Learn more about Orchard Laboratories by going to orchardtalks.com. And Faisal, on top of the COVID-19 testing, it's been, of course, the bulk of what we've been speaking about. It's the hottest topic, particularly in your laboratory's field right now because of the situation that we're in the U.S. and around the world with COVID-19. But what other work does Orchard Laboratories do outside of COVID-19 testing, either before the pandemic or what they're still working on now potentially beyond the COVID-19 testing?
So Orchard, when we started, we were focused on toxicology and confirmatory drug testing. So we were very concerned about the opioid pandemic or epidemic that was there as well, and we continue to service that need as well. So we do a lot of confirmatory drug testing for physicians who are prescribing Schedule II narcotics to patients to make sure that they're being used safely and appropriately. We do a lot more molecular PCR testing from women's health, UTIs, STD, a gambit of molecular genetic type testing. We also now have launched traditional blood testing. Through the pandemic, we were servicing so many different facilities and nursing homes and things like that, outside of just the COVID testing, they requested that we handle their other types of testing as well. And so we've now brought that on board. So we're pretty full service operation at this point.
We're joined by Faisal Ahmad. He's the co-founder and the vice president of Orchard Laboratories with us on the MegaCast. And Faisal, just another minute or so before we'll say goodbye today. Is there anything else that would be important for our audience to know or to keep in mind about testing for COVID-19 and the processes that go in place and the people that are behind making sure that these tests go by smoothly, go by swiftly, and most importantly, accurately?
Absolutely. I always want to highlight the laboratory technicians and the people in the lab who are from the beginning of the pandemic have been at the front line and really don't get a lot of the spotlight or recognition that I think they deserve. And these are people who are dealing with thousands of live samples. They're at risk as well. We follow strict safety guidelines, but again, they are doing that. And they do this every day, day in and day out. And while there are can be issues along the way, and we're talking about this volume of testing. We do our very best to correct and deal with customer service as best we can. So for us and for the general public, I think, just there's a lot of anxiety with this and with testing and whatnot. And, if you feel unsure, it doesn't hurt to get tested. It doesn't hurt to know for sure that you're safe for yourself, for your family members, for the community abroad. So please don't hesitate, and we're there as a partner to help you. For this mandate that came out, I would say in the beginning of the pandemic, we were dealing with a lot of calls from very worried individuals and a lot of anxiety in the general population. And now it's kind of gone full circle, where the calls we're getting now are from companies who are anxious and are unsure of what's going to happen with this testing mandate. And all we'll say is what we said back then, we'll say now is whatever is there, whatever the protocols that are put into place, Orchard will be there as a partner to help navigate that and service our community, which is our number one priority.
Demand's going up, and it's been listed here in my notes that Labs has seen its demand increase 25% just in the last month for COVID-19 testing alone. Faisal, we appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.